Chapter 2379. At the moment when 3 heaven-opening state monsters appeared, Han Fei knew that he was ambushed. When he realized that there were as many as 6 heaven-opening state monsters coming to ambush him, he felt a little uncomfortable. Based on his previous experience, he had stayed in this area for a long enough time. They didn't ambush him earlier, but now they ambushed him. Moreover, there were 6 of them at once. This was more like a premeditated ambush. It was a planned ambush. In the swamp under Han Fei, a tree man suddenly emerged. This tree man stretched out billions of tentacles and seemed to be trying to control Han Fei. The biggest feature of demonic plants was control. Han Fei could feel that there were strange patterns forming on each tree vine, as if they were the Tao patterns of this world that had been contaminated by ominous things. Except for these billions of rattan tentacles, all the demonic plants and monsters within 1,000,000 kilometers all exploded. Han Fei didn't need to eradicate them at all. All the non-heaven-opening state creatures here self-destructed and then turned into clouds of various colors. Of course, it would be great if they were just clouds, but in fact they were densely packed poisonous spores, and they were all active. Moreover, they were all active. The key was that some undetectable Tao patterns would be imprinted on the tiny or even undetectable spores. This was just a tree demon, but it had a variety of weird abilities such as control, Tao pattern incantation, spores parasitism, poisonous fog erosion, and so on. It wasn't that it was very strong, but that its means were too insidious. At this time, Han Fei felt that he needed a sea of fire. Swished 2 sledgehammers appeared in Han Fei's hands. He was not a sword cultivator, so he could use any weapon. These 2 sledgehammers were forging hammers. As for the use of combat techniques, Han Fei activated the Void Fire Refining Technique to assist the 100 Battles Divine Hammer Technique. In an instant, on the 2 hammers, the immortal spirit turned into fire. If it was not enough to turn into fire, he would be weaker than others if he didn't use the Tao patterns of heaven and earth. In the sky, thousands of twisted runes were imprinted on his body, including the 2 hammers, which were covered in runes too. As soon as these Tao patterns appeared, coupled with the immortal spirit turned into fire, the flames suddenly filled the air. Countless demonic vines hovered in midair. In fact, half of them were instantly incinerated. However, Han Fei had no time to pay attention to the tree demon, because the 2 extremely fast heaven-opening realm monsters were the goshawk and the cheetah. Whoosh, 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 the goshawk approached and spread its wings, filling the sky with feathers. They were more like spores, trying to blow at Han Fei with the wind. 3-stage hammer technique. Dong, 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 in the void, more than 200 ripples exploded in the void in the blink of an eye. After each ripple appeared in the void, a new one would follow. In the end, the ripples turned into a cone and pierced through the void, piercing through the rain of spores that filled the sky. They were evenly matched with the goshawk that was desperately flapping its wings. At the moment when Han Fei hammered the void, a golden figure tens of thousands of meters tall rose from the ground. What else could it be if it wasn't a world of laws? At this moment, 2 hands stretched out from Fa Xiang's back. His fists struck out superluminal fist imprints, and a series of explosions seemed to occur in the direction where the cheetah was running from. BM, 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 BM. In the blink of an eye, the attacks of the 3 heaven-opening realm demonic plants were blocked by Han Fei alone. However, Han Fei didn't forget that there were still 3 heaven-opening realm demonic plants. At this moment, the giant python had already risen into the air, and before it arrived, it whipped its tail. Bam! Han Fei, who seemed to have no time to block it, was whipped away and smashed into the swamp. The terrifying explosion rippled for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Then, the swamp exploded, and the surrounding blade storm swept across, crushing the vines into spores and pollen. But the immortal spiritual fire was still burning, so the tree man couldn't do anything to Han Fei. With a thought, Han Fei transformed into a clone of Neza with 3 heads and 6 arms. He held a pair of hammers with both hands, wore gloves on both fists, and held a pair of knives with both fists. For a time, there was a fierce battle here, until the centipede moving underground couldn't help but attack, and chain-like hooks appeared all over the sky. Han Fei realized that as long as he was hooked, there would be billions of hooks falling on him in the next moment. Those were all centipede claws. If he was hooked, with the help of the tree demon, he would be in a passive position. It was not that these demonic plants were very strong. In fact, their bodies were not very strong, but they borrowed too much external power. For example, a heaven-opening realm demonic plant could almost absorb the power of all ordinary demonic plants within 1,000,000 kilometers. Then would he still be a proper heaven-opening realm cultivator? If there was only one, it wouldn't be a big problem to deal with it, but if there were 6 in a row, it would be a big problem. Han Fei thought that if they were normal people, they wouldn't fight unscrupulously in the same territory and then wait to be ambushed by the other party, right? Han Fei laughed at himself. He didn't use the void-stealing technique immediately. He was waiting for the 6 heaven-opening realm demonic plants to surround him. Then it would be a good opportunity to kill them all with the God-sealing spear. Chapter 2380. Without the power of the giant python, the effect of the God-sealing spear array was immediately stabilized, but not completely. At most, it could make the God-sealing spear array last for a dozen more seconds. Of course, if another monster was sealed, the effect of the God-sealing spear array could be strengthened to more than 100 seconds. And the second prey, Han Fei chose the toad. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. Clatter with a snap of Han Fei's fingers, the body of the big toad was pierced. It was a water-shaped spear imprinted with heaven and earth Tao patterns. When he was deliberately rolled by the big toad's tongue just now, he had already left the infinity water. As long as he thought about it, the infinity water could change into any form he wanted. At this moment, the toad was directly strung up, and the heaven and earth Tao patterns were imprinted on the infinity water. The toad didn't even have the chance to struggle. Not only that, the toad and the giant python couldn't even disperse their bodies. This scene was far beyond the expectations of the other 4 demonic plants. They never thought that in such a short time, 2 teammates would be suppressed almost at the same time. Without the help of the 2, the God-sealing spear array here was relatively stable, and their strength had dropped by as much as 30%. The main reason was that the range of the God-sealing spear array was relatively large, and they had the power of countless demonic plants. Therefore, this caused their strength to drop by only 30%, otherwise it would have been more. If these 6 demonic plants were equivalent to 6 late-stage star transformation cultivators before, then now they were at most at the late-stage star transformation cultivators, close to the late stage. Of course, if the Divine Capital Dynasty or the Heavenly Race sent 6 late-stage star transformation cultivators, Han Fei probably wouldn't be able to resist them. Fortunately, the intelligence of these demonic plants was not that high. Their reaction was not that fast. Although their individual combat power might have barely reached the late-stage star transformation cultivator. However, they had not experienced many battles. Han Fei, who had experienced hundreds of battles, had already prepared for all kinds of situations. 2 of the 6 demonic plants had been killed. The remaining 4 demonic plants knew that it was useless to disperse their bodies at this time. The first thing they had to do was to open a channel. Then, to Han Fei's surprise, the 4 heaven-opening state monsters began to borrow power from each other. The 4 demonic creatures gathered all of their powers on the goshawk. At this moment, they had already discovered that Han Fei was different. This person was not easy to deal with. He killed 2 of their companions as soon as he started. If they waited for a few more seconds, they would probably be dead. As soon as the goshawk flew away, Han Fei grinned. When it flew away, he suddenly said, "There's no wind here." Hula bang! Han Fei thought of depriving the great Tao of wind within the range of the god's sealing spear array. No matter how a bird flew, it would borrow the power of the great Tao of wind in the beginning. If the great Tao was suddenly gone, wouldn't he be doomed? However, Han Fei did not attack the goshawk immediately. The centipede, the cheetah, and the tree man must have greatly weakened their powers by lending their powers to the goshawk. Even if goshawk did not have the great Tao of wind, he would definitely have some other way to rise again. Han Fei, on the other hand, appeared before the cheetah at 8 times the speed of light. Puff, puff, puff! The cheetah wanted to disperse its body and turn into countless demonic plants and monsters, but Han Fei was still a step faster. He stabbed the god-sealing spear at the cheetah's head. The tree demon wanted to help the cheetah, but Han Fei had 3 heads and 6 arms. He punched out a series of super light fist marks with his fists, and Han Fei put on the god-slaying gloves again. Realizing that the cheetah was done for, the tree demons and centipedes scattered. The area, which had been devoid of life and demonic creatures, was suddenly filled with tens of thousands of demonic creatures. Spores filled the sky. However, how could Han Fei not know what the centipede and the tree man were thinking? They knew that they could only rely on the goshawk, so they used most of their burdensome demonic bodies to stall Han Fei. Their main bodies had already run to the goshawk. At this moment, Han Fei had just finished sealing the cheetah. The entire god-sealing spear array was filled with colorful spores. It could also isolate perception. Han Fei's perception was blocked. However, Han Fei smiled faintly and shook his head slightly. Void descent. Unlike other people, when other people created clones, the clones created by the god's descent technique were not their complete identities. When his clones exceeded a certain level of power, the descended body would become the main body. Han Fei had accidentally discovered this trump card after more than 30 years in the god's ruins, but he had never used it until now. If he didn't have to kill the 6 demonic creatures today, he wouldn't have used it. Besides, the reason why he dared to use it was that he was the only one here. Even if there were venerable emperors, they might not pay attention to him. His divine mind passed through the god-sealing spear array, passed through the spores, and finally found his little trump card? Han Fei thought that venerable emperors wouldn't be so bored. The goshawk was also dumbfounded. Why did this person just appear like this? Having no time to think, the goshawk condensed a sharp claw with all its strength. However, a holy pillar of light suddenly descended on its body. Sizzle, sizzle! A large amount of ominous aura was directly purified, and a thick black mist spread in all directions. Bathed in the divine light, Han Fei walked toward the stiff goshawk and said, "You shouldn't have pinned your hopes on someone else. Fortunately, the 3 of you gathered your strength. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to take down the 4 of you in a short time." At this time, the goshawk still had strength to spare, but after being illuminated by the god's awakening technique, a large amount of dark aura in its body was purified, and the power it had just obtained from the others was immediately reduced. The situation became one-on-one. After more than 30 seconds, all of them were nailed to the ground by Han Fei, including the goshawk. After destroying all the bodies of the demonic creatures scattered by the tree demon and the centipede, Han Fei finally caught the tree demon. Han Fei had to admit that this world of demonic plants had indeed given him a lot of surprises. They were a kind of strange life form, and their bodies could be divided into countless independent individuals. There were also differences in strength between independent individuals. Once necessary, all the individuals would turn into body parts and converge. If their main body was just an ordinary star-turning demonic creature, then when all these independent individuals converged, they would suddenly become the late stage of the star-turning realm. Han Fei wondered what would happen if their independent individuals also evolved to the heaven-opening state. Would multiple heaven-opening state bodies fuse with each other and finally prove their Tao? After studying for a long time, Han Fei could only roughly understand that all of their individuals came from parasitism. As for why they were this kind of life form, it could only be related to the Tao of parasitism. Han Fei couldn't help but think of Xuefan in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City in the Water Wood Heaven. That guy really had advanced consciousness and embarked on a Tao of parasitism. If he was allowed to really grow up, the consequences would probably be unimaginable. After sighing with emotion, Han Fei didn't take out their life origin crystals immediately. Instead, he used a weird technique. This technique was the vitality condensation technique passed down by the god of war. Although using this technique would strengthen his own hellfire, but he had to try it and know how to use it first. At the same time, he also wanted to feel the feeling of using this technique. Han Fei used his own vitality as a guide to affect the vitality of the 6 demonic plants in the God Sealing Spear array. In fact, it was just affecting their origin crystals. How could there be a better test subject than this? After a while, Han Fei felt that in front of him, an extremely rich vitality was slowly forming. However, the feeling of the so-called hellfire was not obvious, or even barely felt. Is it because these demonic plants are not good things, so it's not easy for them to breed hellfire? Han Fei didn't really want to be covered by the hellfire. He just wanted to compare it and finally determine how to use the vitality condensation technique in the future. But the result was not ideal. Half a day later, crack, 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 the vitality of these demonic plants condensed into a very pure origin life, which seemed to be several times more than absorbing their origin crystals alone. Sending this part of vitality into his natal star, Han Fei felt that this rich vitality was quickly absorbed by the natal star, like a rain falling on the sand, absorbed in the blink of an eye. Huh! Han Fei's heart did a flip. He only felt that he only saw a small river, and the vitality seemed to gather into this river in the natal star. The increase was actually 1/10 of the river's amount. This is the river of life? No, Feng Xingliu said that the river of life is a mysterious river that combines the lives of billions of people. This should just be a kind of quantification of the vitality contained in my natal star. Not only that, after Han Fei suddenly closed his eyes, an illusory river appeared in his mind. It seemed that he accidentally found it, so it didn't hide from him anymore and really appeared. That was the river of life of the natal star just now. And this is my own river of life? Chapter 2381. Han Fei was really grateful to the 100,000-year competition of the divine land of the East Sea, which had broadened his horizons, given him a lot of inspiration, and provided him with a lot of resources. It turned out that in addition to the river of time, there was also a river of life in this world. Although he couldn't know what the river of life was, he could already see his own river of life. The water in the river of life represented his vitality, and the length of the river of life represented his lifespan. Vitality could be replenished, but lifespan couldn't be easily enlarged. Once this river of life burst, it meant the passing of life, which meant that even if he had vitality, he couldn't replenish his lifespan. So this is the real relationship between lifespan and vitality. Han Fei was observing the length of the river of life. His seemed to be 132 meters. Theoretically, the lifespan of a pioneer sea-state cultivator was 100,000 years, and he was already in the heaven-opening state, so he should have a lifespan of 1,000,000 years. Therefore, the answer was obvious. His lifespan was 132 million years. And his pool was full, which meant that he didn't lack vitality. Han Fei realized that both the natal star and himself had a river of life. The problem was that his river of life was easy to judge. But the natal star's river of life was longer and deeper than his. However, the natal star's river of life was so illusory that he couldn't judge its length and could only compare its depth. So far, Han Fei found that the depth of his natal star's river of life hadn't even reached half. It was only about 1/3 deep. Han Fei knew that this was a newborn natal star and it was still incomplete. For now, it seemed to lack vitality. At this time, Han Fei was shocked. It seemed that his natal star was quite short of vitality. The vitality of the natal star was only 1/3. No wonder the god of war said he had to inject vitality into it. But Han Fei didn't rush to inject vitality. He didn't know how familiar the vitality in the origin of life was with the vitality condensed by other natal stars. Anyway, his star core wouldn't be fully born until 4 months later. During this period, he had plenty of time to get a lot of vitality. After testing the vitality condensation technique, Han Fei didn't make any comparison, so he couldn't draw any conclusions. But now, his second mission, which was to kill 10 heaven-opening demonic beasts, had been completed. But the first task of killing pioneer sea-state monsters hadn't been completed yet. However, that task was even simpler. It should be completed in a few days. However, he was ambushed. This was definitely premeditated. How did they know which direction he was going to go? Why did they ambush him here? In fact, Han Fei had a vague answer in his heart, which was the demonic source. Han Fei didn't plan to rest. Since today's luck was very bad, and Han Fei had already seen it, he would find the demonic origin and destroy it in one go. Han Fei believed that the demonic energy source was not as difficult as he thought. Otherwise, how many people would be unable to complete the mission of the mana pool? Otherwise, how many people could fail to complete the natal star state of demonic plants of Demon Star? Moreover, those demonic plants and monsters would listen to its commands. This meant that the other party's level was higher than these plant monsters. However, it was definitely not higher than Celestial Transformation Grand Completion, otherwise it would not have become the third task. The natal star of stage star of cultivators of the stars of out, 2, of star of the star of out. This time, the number of late-stage celestial transformation powerhouses participating in the God Capital Dynasty's Great Meet in the past 100,000 years was less than 5,000. If the mana source had the strength of a late-stage celestial transformation realm cultivator, then what was the point of playing? He just needed to let these 5,000 people pass the test. Therefore, Han Fei thought that the combat power of the demonic energy source shouldn't be high. Thinking of the few plant demon monsters that attacked him, perhaps the only thing that was good about it was that it could guide plant demon monsters to evolve. Perhaps in order to ambush Han Fei, the nearest demonic energy source had mobilized most of the combat power around it. Therefore, Han Fei rushed all the way and didn't encounter another heaven-opening state demonic creature. Finally, after half a day, in the depths of the swamp, Han Fei stopped in a place that didn't look like a swamp but more like an inland swamp lake. If it weren't for the abundant algae on the surface of the swamp, Han Fei would have thought it was more like an inland sea. When he reached this place, Han Fei knew that he had found it. His perception could not penetrate the swamp here, as if there was a force preventing him from doing so. Han Fei stood in the air and said in a very straightforward voice, "You only have one chance now. If you can't ambush me this time, you will definitely die. So, have you thought about what to do?" Seeing no answer, Han Fei smiled and said, "If I guessed correctly, you have basically used up all the power you can use. Even though there are many demonic creatures here, there are countless heaven-opening state demonic creatures. However, they can't all be under your control. You are just one of the countless demonic energy sources in this world, and the power you can control is limited. So, how about making a deal?" "A deal?" Gurgling, the swamp was bubbling, more and more bubbles appeared and became denser and denser. Finally, when a purple crystal flower bud appeared and bloomed, Han Fei could finally see the so-called demonic energy source. In the purple crystal spring water, a humanoid plant demon monster emerged. Han Fei couldn't figure out whether this was a plant demon, a human, or a demonic creature. She seemed to have the characteristics of all three. You are the demonic energy source? After he was ambushed, he actually realized that there seemed to be a wise man behind these plant demon. Otherwise, if he were those plant demon monsters, their first thought would not be to ambush him. Because ambushing him was meaningless to the plant demon monsters. He didn't have any ominous aura on him. Although he was full of vitality, they were plant demon and didn't lack vitality. So why would they ambush him? If these plant demon monsters didn't want anything from him, but wanted to ambush him, it could only be that they had received instructions from something. Now it seemed that, as he expected, this demonic energy source was indeed alive. And in Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name: Demonic Energy Source. Introduction: An intelligent plant demon, living in the dark demonic realm. Because it has the ability to quickly absorb ominous power, it can be attached to by many plant demon monsters. They parasitize all the attached demonic creatures and make them their clones. And the parasitized demonic creatures won't find out that they are just clones. In the domain of the demonic energy source, all creatures are nutrients for the demonic energy source. But the demonic energy source needs to give birth to a real body to have combat power. Before that, the combat power of the demonic energy source only depends on the attached demonic creatures. There is a lot of ominous aura in its body, which can only be suppressed by the pure life origin crystal in its heart. Level 109 Quality, Rare Realm, Peak of the Sky. Opening level contains 3092 strands of ominous aura. Combat skills: Mind Control, Parasitism, Life Extraction, Energy Extraction. Collectible Ominous Magic Crystal. Absorbable. Remarks: In a world contaminated by ominous aura, no spiritual plant is innocent. Seeing this information, Han Fei was shocked. Oh my god! Did those heaven-opening level demonic creatures know that they were also parasitized? They turned them into clones, but didn't tell them that they were clones and let them maintain independent consciousness. Is this demonic energy source crazy? Besides, Han Fei never expected that this thing was actually at the peak of the sky opening level. What kind of deal do you want to make? This demonic energy source seemed to be relatively calm. Although Han Fei couldn't feel its strength, according to the demon purification pot, it was obviously not strong. However, if they really fought, this thing should have some trump cards. But Han Fei didn't care. No matter what this trump card was, even if it was a large amount of ominous matter, Han Fei didn't care. This degree of ominous matter could be easily purified by the heavenly awakening divine technique. At most, he would just waste some vitality. And in the demon territory, there was no lack of vitality. But what Han Fei didn't expect was that this demonic energy source really came out and was willing to communicate with Han Fei. This was different from those demonic plants. Even heaven-opening level demonic creatures wouldn't be willing to communicate with him. Or rather, they didn't know how to communicate. Han Fei said, I want resources, treasures, life crystals, and a massive amount of vitality. Can you satisfy me, or are you willing to provide me with clues? Han Fei didn't have any killing intent at this moment. He was seriously negotiating a deal. He wasn't a native of the infernal domain, so he didn't know where the resources were. Even with the nautical globe, he could only find 3 places at most a day. But the demonic energy source was different. Since this guy had wisdom and was willing to negotiate a deal with him, it meant that there was room for negotiation. However, to Han Fei's surprise, the demonic energy source immediately responded, Okay, no problem. But how can I trust you? Han Fei grinned. You can only trust me, can't you? However, the demonic energy source shook its head slightly. No. Since it's a deal, there should be reciprocity. I can give you the resources you want, treasures, vitality, and even a large number of life crystals. But you have to help me too. Otherwise you can kill me. But let me tell you, even if you kill me now, you can't kill the real me. Han Fei smiled. You're quite talkative. Okay, tell me, what do you want? The demonic energy source said slowly, I want you to help me kill other demonic energy sources. In exchange, I can give you all the treasures, resources, vitality, spiritual fruits, and so on in my territory and his territory. Chapter 2382. Hearing this demonic source's words, Han Fei sneered in his heart. It really deserved to be the most intelligent creature in the demonic realm. It had a good plan. If he wanted to break through the territory of a demonic source, he might have to kill at least dozens of heaven-opening state monsters in the other party's territory. If it was the demonic source itself fighting each other, it would be very difficult. But Han Fei was a power that was beyond their power. This made the demonic source feel that with Han Fei's power, it should not be a problem to break through a demonic source territory. After all, it had been broken through in this way. If he lost, he had to admit defeat. Sometimes, losing did not mean that he would definitely die. When Han Fei heard this demonic source's words, although he sneered in his heart, he had to consider it. This demonic source's words were simply too King attractive. He had only broken through a demonic source territory, and he had already gained a lot of benefit. If he broke through a dozen, Han Fei felt that the vitality of his natal star might be filled up. However, compared to his own purpose, the purpose of the demonic source was actually more terrifying. Because Han Fei knew that even if he killed this demonic source now, she would not actually die in a complete sense. She could parasitize other creatures, so she did not die. For the demonic source, she just changed her body, and then slowly lived, and in the future, she would grow into a new demonic source. Therefore, this demonic source was very confident. She dared to trade with Han Fei, and also dared to refuse Han Fei's trade. For her, even if she was killed, it was not a big deal. Demonic plants had a very long lifespan, and it was impossible for Han Fei to guard her. Han Fei was thinking. The demonic source itself did not have any strength. They only relied on the monsters attached to them. They manipulated the territory and collected ominous power, and their ultimate purpose was to condense a true body. Once this demonic source true body was condensed, with a star transformation great perfection demonic source, its strength would be very terrifying, and it might even directly become an emperor-level powerhouse. And the key to condensing a true body should still be the ominous power. It should be extremely difficult to obtain this kind of power. As the saying goes, if you give up, you will gain. This demonic source would give out some ominous power, and then take it back without a trace. Han Fei did not know what would happen if a demonic source devoured another demonic source. On one hand, he was worried about the massive amount of resources that the mana origin had mentioned. On the other hand, he was worried that the fusion of the two mana origins would cause the other party's ominous power to suddenly multiply, which might lead to some problems. Han Fei didn't know what to say for a moment. After a moment of silence, Han Fei said casually, "You should know that since I can find you, I can also find all the resources and treasures under your territory. As for the life force, I can take it slowly and slowly. However, you want to devour other mana sources and use me as a fighter. Do you really think that your intelligence is very high?" The origin of mana replied, "This is a fair trade. What I can give is worthy of what I want." While dealing with the demonic energy source, Han Fei thought quickly. He still had to be careful about this cooperation. He didn't want to create a venerable sovereign. That would be the end of him. How could he do such a thing so casually? He wanted to see if he could turn this mana source into a puppet. But then again, that was an ominous force. The essence of the ominous force was pollution, and the souls that were separated would also be inextricably linked to the main body. For example, the Blood Fiend, who was also a consummate star transformation cultivator. Before this Blood Fiend died, he was also very crazy, using his evil chi to cultivate stars. But his soul was completely annihilated. Although he refined him into a puppet, the evil chi was not enough to make him lose himself. If he could control the Blood Fiend puppet at will, nothing would happen to him. But the mana source was different. If he turned them into puppets, Once the soul of the main body was polluted by the evil qi, it would not be a problem of a few resources. Han Fei thought for a while. Interesting. Give me all the resources first, and I will help you destroy the other mana source territory. But this mana source shook its head slightly. A deal shouldn't be like this. You destroy the other mana source, and I will give you resources together. Han Fei said, if I spend a long time to destroy the other party, but you take the opportunity to swallow the other party and then have the power to compete with me, do you think I am stupid? I will help you kill no more than 6 heaven-opening state demonic creatures in the other party's territory as a token of my loyalty. Then, you have to take out all the resources in your territory. This is the real basis of cooperation. The mana source thought for a while. You kill half of the other party's heaven-opening state demonic creatures, and I will give you half of the resources and treasures in my territory. Han Fei sneered. Your territory has basically been dug out by me, right? Let me tell you, don't push your luck. I can cooperate with you, and I can also cooperate with other mana source. So, you'd better give me all the resources. Otherwise, there is no need to make this deal. I will directly destroy you. The mana source said, I am not afraid of death. Han Fei sneered. Are you trying to say that in your territory, there are many creatures that you have parasitized, and they are all your clones? That's why I can only kill your current body, but not your real body, right? At this time, the demonic source finally looked at Han Fei seriously. Han Fei told her her secret, which surprised her a little. How did Han Fei know about it? Han Fei chuckled. Your territory is only so big. Outside your territory, there must be the territory of other mana source. Do you think I can tell the mana source of other territories that your territory has been penetrated by me? Do you think they have a way to find you and destroy you? At this time, the ripples in the amethyst flower bud shook, and the mana source was silent for a while. After you kill half of the other party's heaven-opening state demonic creatures, I can give you all the resources and treasures in my territory. However, Han Fei, who had thought it through, shook his head slightly. No, you didn't agree just now. It's too late now. As a plant, you shouldn't give a pure-blood human race time to think. Now, give me all the resources in your territory. This is your proof of allegiance. The mana source was silent for a while. Do we still have a chance to cooperate? Han Fei nodded. Yes, but we have to cooperate according to my terms. I will penetrate 2 mana source territories. You find all the resources in these 2 places for me, and I will give you a chance to devour a mana source. At this time, the mana source had no choice. The battle between the demonic creatures was actually more intense than imagined. In the demon realm, in addition to the mana source, the so-called heaven-opening state demonic creatures were actually all chess pieces in the competition between mana source and mana source. Now that he had no chess pieces, he had already lost. And once the other mana source knew that he was not dead, the consequence might be that they would send an overwhelming number of demonic creatures to search for him. Okay. This demonic energy source agreed and said to Han Fei, I need 1 day to gather the resources. 1 day later, Han Fei saw countless demonic plants and demonic creatures heading to the place where the mana source was located to offer sacrifices. Most of these demonic creatures were in the sea opening state. After all, the territory owned by this mana source was not small. If Exalt Realm experts were required to deliver resources to such a huge territory, then they would be finished. Who knew how long it would take for them to arrive? However, these were not important. Han Fei saw a huge amount of resources, black-yellow soil piled up into a mountain. There were a total of 3 pieces of primal chaos treasure soil. However, 2 of them were inferior and the last one was ordinary. There were more than 2 million ordinary spiritual fruit. To be honest, it was the first time that Han Fei had seen so many spiritual fruit. It was not until today that he realized how rich the resources of a powerful starting ground were. If endless resources were enjoyed by one person, how strong would this person be? There were more than 13,000 kinds of mineral veins here, and the vitality here had gathered into 16 large life origin crystals, which were equivalent to 16 heaven-opening state life origin crystals. At this time, the mana source said, I can only take out so many resources in my territory. If you want to kill all the demonic creatures in my territory, then the surrounding mana source will know that something has happened to me and will provoke and explore my territory. Han Fei roughly estimated that if it was purely in terms of the number of resources, Han Fei was surprised. The total amount of resources here was probably 500,000 kilometers, and this was because most of the resources of the heaven-opening state demonic creatures had already been taken by him, so these 500,000 kilometers of resources were extra. Therefore, in fact, if all of them were counted, there would be about 700,000 to 800,000 kilometers of resources in a mana source territory. This did not include the black-yellow soil. I'm rich. Han Fei's heart was surging. A conservative estimate was that there were more than 100,000 mana sources in this demonic territory. If every mana source territory had so many resources, it would be a terrifying number. And at this moment, after seeing so many resources, Han Fei was considering whether to kill this mana source or not. Anyway, he had already got what he needed. Should he really cooperate with this mana source? Han Fei thought for a while. He really couldn't decide on this matter. It involved ominous things, so he had to ask. Who should he ask? If he asked eldest senior brother, it seemed that the purpose of the Void Temple was to deal with ominous things. If he created an ominous emperor, would eldest senior brother slap him? He'd better ask the god of war. Anyway, the god of war was far away and couldn't care about this. Besides, he had to ask him for advice on such an important matter. What was this called? This was called trust. Han Fei took the resources and then glanced at the mana source again. Let's talk about it after I finish my seclusion. Chapter 2383. Han Fei wasn't afraid that this demonic energy source would run away. If it could run away, it would have run away a long time ago. Therefore, it probably didn't have the ability to move fast. Maybe it was connected to the earth vein here, so it couldn't leave even if it wanted to. And Han Fei's purpose of going to the Life Star was also very clear. Although he had obtained all the resources in this demonic energy source territory, but he still had a lot of concerns about whether to cooperate with this demonic energy source or not. After a moment, above the sea of stars, an altar appeared and a curtain of fire soared into the sky. The god of war asked, "You're here again? Why didn't you sacrifice a creature at the heaven-opening state to me this time?" The god of war took the initiative to send a message to Han Fei before Han Fei even sent a message. It was mainly because Han Fei came too frequently. He would come here every few days, which gave the god of war the illusion that this guy wasn't busy, wasn't he? Why does he look like he's so bored every day? Han Fei said, "Senior god of war, let's not worry about the sacrifice. I have a situation here." Blah blah. Han Fei gave a lengthy description and sent the news of the demon realm to the god of war. The god of war immediately responded, "Are you sure it's the starting ground contaminated by ominous power? Or the starting ground with at least 1,000,000 creatures at the heaven-opening state?" Han Fei said, "Yes, that's it. I've caught a demonic energy source now. I'm wondering if I can cooperate with him, blah blah." The god of war was dumbfounded. "You're supposed to do a task, but you're cooperating with a monster?" The god of war said, "We can cooperate. According to your description, as long as such a demonic energy source doesn't devour more than 5 other demonic energy sources, it shouldn't be a big threat. But you don't know if it has devoured other demonic energy sources before, so you can't gamble. Besides, all races don't have the habit of doing business with ominous power, so you can't rely on it. So, my suggestion is that even if we can cooperate, there's no need to cooperate." "There's no need to cooperate?" Han Fei asked rhetorically. He could point out how many demonic energy sources a demonic energy source had devoured with the nautical panorama. If the god of war was right, he could kill him after the demonic energy source devoured 4 other demonic energy sources. However, War God came and said that there was no need to cooperate. This was worth pondering. There were so many resources, so why was there no need to cooperate? The god of war replied, "What do you think is the main purpose of needing resources after turning into a star?" Han Fei nodded. "Of course, I'll take this step well. Even if we don't take the path to stardom, we'll still need to use a huge amount of resources, right? For example, when I reach the Tao. War God, when the time comes for you to prove your Tao, it will definitely not be enough for you to just snatch some resources from the demon source territory. In order to prove one's Tao, one needed to borrow the heavenly Tao and comprehend the laws. If one could snatch the heavenly Tao of a starting ground, it would indeed be very beneficial to prove one's Tao. But do you have that ability now?" Han Fei asked, "Senior God of War, do you mean that the resources I get now are of little use?" War God, it's not that they aren't useful. However, since you went to such a place, according to what you said, there might be 100,000 mana sources here, and you only have 3 years. No matter how many of them you hit, how many can you kill? He had the ability to kill these devil origins. You might as well try to steal the origin of this world. Han Fei was shocked. Steal the origin of this world? Senior God of War, do you think I've lived long enough? This is a terrifying starting ground with 100,000 devil origins. Can the origin energy of the world be stolen so easily? If I'm not mistaken, the origin of the world should have a certain degree of consciousness, right? At that time, I can casually get 1,000 or 800 heaven-opening realm monsters. Can I still beat them? War God, as you said, this starting ground is only contaminated by ominous things, but since you can go to this starting ground to train, it means that this starting ground has not been completely eroded by ominous things. In other words, the origin of the world here should still be fighting against the ominous power. While fighting against the ominous power, it has no time to take care of these contaminated monsters. Besides, the origin of the world may have a little consciousness, but it is more dominated by laws, not as exaggerated as you think. Hearing what the God of War said, Han Fei suddenly thought of something. If the origin of the world here had not been completely eroded, and was still fighting against the ominous power, then it seemed that he really had a chance. But Han Fei asked again, "Senior God of War, even if I find the origin of the world, but I have to face the ominous power, right? If I absorb the origin of this world, won't I have to face the erosion of the ominous power?" War God, you are now facing the ominous. So many of you have gone to a world that is tainted by the ominous. Every monster you kill, mana origin and so on, is destroying the ominous. As for facing the ominous power, if necessary, you can ask me to help you. Han Fei was stunned. You'll help me? But Han Fei soon realized that the God of War wanted him to sacrifice a heaven-opening realm life, and he also knew that the star core in the God of War's natal star had been dug out by him. Didn't this mean that the God of War could actually enter other people's natal stars by offering sacrifices? If this was the case, in fact, as long as a passage was open for the God of War could come directly. The question was, what did he have to sacrifice so that the God of War could come through the weird wormhole or a more magical path without any obstacles? Besides, Han Fei remembered that the South Tharch had once described the God of War. Although he had not become a god, in her words, the God of War was infinitely close to a god. If such a big shot really came, it could be said that he could destroy everything in the world. However, would the God of War covet his body? After all, he had not become a god, and Han Fei had opened the sky from 810,000 miles away. He was talented and had countless opportunities. It was okay to chat with the god of war through the fire curtain, but if he really had to face the god of war, Han Fei really did not have the guts. But Han Fei could not say these words directly, so he rolled his eyes and replied, "Senior God of War, if you really come, I'm afraid that the Dongwu Great Emperor will have to come down personally. At that time, not to mention the origin of the world, I can't even get the resources of the Devil Source territory." After a long while, the fire curtain responded, "That's true. After all, this is the territory of the Dongwu Great Emperor. I stole his territory, so this kid will probably hold a grudge. Forget it. Although I can't go over, I think you still have to look for the origin of the world. As for how to deal with the ominous invasion, you can activate the God of War seal, and I can protect you for a while. Since this is the territory of the Dongwu Great Emperor, if you really steal the origin of the world and cause problems in this world, the Dongwu Great Emperor will come out to clean up the situation. You are just a contestant. What does it have to do with you? The Dongwu Great Emperor will not take action against you. He will always give me face." Han Fei thought to himself, "Haha, you seem to have a lot of face." But Han Fei thought, if the god of war asked me to get the origin of the world, will there also be others who instigate their descendants to get the origin of the world? After all, according to Han Fei's current understanding, for example, the Heavenly Clan, the Phoenix Divine Clan, and even the Mountain of Fist Radiance and the Eastern Sword Pavilion, there had been gods. If there were gods guiding them, would they compete for the origin of the world? Han Fei felt that it might really be possible. Although those people did not have the nautical multitude apparatus, the heritage of the gods was unimaginable to him. They were likely to have other ways to find the origin of the world. Thinking of this, Han Fei's mind became active. Compared with the origin of the world in such a starting ground, the demonic energy source was just rubbish. The origin of the world contained vitality, the rules of the world, the great Tao, and the power of the world. And in such a starting ground, once he got the origin of the world, the problem of injecting vitality into it would be solved immediately. There was no need to get these so-called crystals of the origin of life. Even he couldn't eat so much of the origin of the world alone. Then he would let Little Black, Little White, and the Emperor Sparrow eat it together. It was a pity that he couldn't take Little Fatty and the others with him. Even if he couldn't eat it, he could still sacrifice it to the god of war. Anyway, if he really got the power of the origin of the world, he would almost reach the end of the star transformation realm. Thinking of this, Han Fei suddenly felt that the demonic energy source was not good enough. Han Fei immediately said, "Senior God of War, I'll listen to you. I'll go find the origin of the world." Han Fei was about to go offline when the God of War sent a message. "Boy, if you really get the world source, he definitely couldn't eat it all by himself. I'll teach you the method to store the world origin, and you can offer it to me when the time comes." Han Fei immediately responded, "Senior God of War, I'm risking my life." "God of War, haven't I taught you enough? I originally wanted to teach you the Supreme God technique after you infused it with vitality to refine your body. You can't even bear to part with a little bit of the world's origin?" Supreme God technique? Han Fei's eyes immediately lit up, and he quickly responded, "Senior God of War, who are you looking down on? Am I the kind of person who can't bear to part with treasures? I said that I'm risking my life. Just teach me a way to store the world origin. Can't you give my war god seal some time?" "War god, why don't you give me a proper sacrifice? Don't you have any idea what you are offering?" Han Fei, "Okay, just you wait. Within 3 months, I'll definitely offer you 2 authentic sacrifices." After this chat, Han Fei felt much more energetic than before. In the outside world, when Han Fei returned from his natal star, the demonic energy source was still in place. After Han Fei came out, the demonic energy source asked, "You're back so soon?" Han Fei grinned. "Yes. Demonic energy source. According to my judgment, there are 13 demonic energy sources nearby, the weakest of which is in the west. However, Han Fei shook his head slightly. No, you're wrong. The demonic energy source didn't seem to understand. I can't be wrong. Han Fei grinned. The weakest one is right in front of me. Demonic energy source. Chapter 2384. Perhaps the demonic origin didn't expect that Han Fei would still choose to attack it after going around in circles. It didn't understand why. It wasn't easy for him to reach the peak of the heaven-opening realm, but after Han Fei's attack, he almost fell from the peak of the heaven-opening realm to the heaven-opening realm. Fortunately, it had countless bodies. As long as it was given time, it would only be a matter of time before it grew back to the peak. It just didn't understand where such a strong master like Han Fei came from. Little did it know that half a day later, Han Fei came to a deep-sea domain, which was adjacent to the swamp. It was reasonable to say that there was also a demonic origin here. Knowing that the demonic origin was parasitic, Han Fei found a creature in the heaven-opening state and shouted at it, "I've killed the demonic origin in the west. I'm too lazy to find the original body. It's yours." Han Fei didn't care whether the demonic origin here would get the news from this demonic shark or not. Anyway, his words had been conveyed. It didn't matter whether the demonic origin would eventually die or not. Han Fei flitted across the sky, holding a sensing object that Wu Bufan and the others gave him. He could vaguely sense that the one closest to him should be Xiaomingde. Since he had promised these guys to do something for them, he might as well help them. He also wanted to see the real faces of these foppish young masters. The fourth round of qualifiers, 27 days after the start of the competition. Xiaomingde was holding a stick that emitted purple-black flames and pierced through a demonic tortoise whose body was illusory and seemed to be half real. However, he casually made a grabbing motion, took out a life origin crystal, and then continued running madly. Suddenly, within the range of Xiaomingde's perception, a figure appeared. "Xiaomingde, just give up and surrender. You should know that since you decided to participate in the 100,000-year major competition, you have no way out." Xiaomingde suddenly stopped and looked at the other two figures that appeared in front of him. He said, "How many times have I said that I was forced to participate in the 100,000-year major competition? Did I get in your way? Why do you have to chase me? This is the 8th time. Did you come here just to kill me?" The man sneered. "Xiaomingde, stop pretending. We've always suspected that you've awakened a top-tier bloodline, but we've failed to verify it time and time again. We don't know what method you used to conceal it. In this 100,000-year great competition, you were able to escape our pursuit 7 times, and you even had 3 people protecting you. This in itself speaks volumes. So, no matter how much you've hidden, this time you must die. Go!" 1 late heaven opening stage expert and 3 late heaven opening stage experts surrounded him. It stood to reason that Xiaomingde would not be able to beat any of these 4 people. Not to mention a late-stage celestial transformation cultivator. Even a late-stage celestial transformation cultivator would not be a match for that playboy Xiaomingde. But now, the 4 great experts had formed an inescapable net, and Xiaomingde had nowhere to run. Late-stage celestial transformation realm. When they truly attacked, they possessed superluminal speed. In just an instant, they appeared in front of Xiaomingde. For a time, the great Tao collided, the void became cold, and ice condensed. At this moment, Xiaomingde held a jade strip in his hand. In the eyes of others, it was the escape jade strip he usually used. One of them sneered and shouted, "Spatial alternation. It's over." The jade strip was directly taken away. That person revealed an excited expression and slashed with his sword, seemingly about to pierce through Xiaomingde. But the next moment, the jade strip in his hand instantly shattered, and a purple flame spread out around that person. In the blink of an eye, all that was left of this person was a pile of bones. As for that skeleton, it turned around and attacked another person next to it. Not good. It's the purple demon spirit devouring technique. Just as that person finished speaking, Chaomingda was already pierced through by the late-stage celestial transformation realm expert. However, that late-stage celestial transformation realm expert was shocked, because a flaming hand suddenly stretched out from Chaomingda's body, and countless purple flame threads appeared in the surrounding 10,000 miles. Not good, it's a trap, retreat, Pucci. The late-stage celestial transformation realm expert sent a sound transmission while cutting off one of his arms. However, the purple flame threads around him erupted too quickly. It was like countless seaweed had suddenly spread out from the bottom of the sea. Of the remaining 3 people, one was entangled by the white bone puppet, while the late-stage celestial transformation realm cultivator retreated. Suddenly, a flame lit up half of the void and a figure emerged from it. Who else could it be but Chaomingda? Just now, Chaomingda's body exploded, but it was not his real body. At this moment, Chaomingda blocked the other late-stage celestial transformation realm expert. Holding a small seal in his hand, the gravity suddenly increased by 10,000 times. Following that, Chaomingda held a long stick with 2 sharp ends, and in the blink of an eye, burst out with 8 times the speed of light. Pucci, this person could not escape and was pierced by Chaomingda's attack. However, this person was not a mediocre person. With a backhand, a blood arrow burst out from his body and directly pierced through Chaomingda's body. The blood arrow exploded inside Chaomingda's body. Boom! A small half of Chaomingda's body exploded. However, his hands were burning with purple flames, pressing down on the body of the person in front of him, instantly burning that person into bones. Cough, cough. Blood spurted out from Chaomingda's body. Obviously, he had suffered a serious injury. However, at this moment, he barely saved himself. His first choice was not to fight, but to escape. He had concealed his strength, and he could still fight, but he had not reached the late-stage celestial transformation realm. Even if he used up all his protective treasures, it would be difficult to kill a late-stage celestial transformation realm expert. Therefore, he had to escape. Only by escaping this dangerous situation could he win. As long as he successfully passed the 4th round of qualifiers, he would shine in the 100,000 years great competition. He could then join other forces and secretly cultivate his clan's henchmen. Only then would he have a chance to turn the tables. On the other side, Chaomingda burst out with extreme speed, reaching 7 times the speed of light. However, the moment he rushed out, a figure faster than him appeared and pressed a palm on Chaomingda's chest. Boom! The upper half of Chaomingda's body exploded, leaving only broken bones and flesh. Huh! A young man stepped out of the void and said with slight surprise, "I knew you had concealed your strength, but I didn't expect you to be a body refinement cultivator. To be able to quietly reach this point in the body refinement cultivator, you are indeed a character. Unfortunately, you shouldn't have participated in this 100,000 years great competition. Otherwise, you wouldn't have died." Cough, cough. Chaomingda's flesh and blood were still rapidly reforming, but his 2 white bone puppets had already been shattered by the late-stage celestial transformation realm expert. Now, Chaomingda's life was in danger. Chaomingda's eyes flashed fiercely. "Chaobuki, I didn't expect a son of a bitch like you to come in person." Chaomingda madly urged the resources in his natal star while letting out a beast-like roar. Chaomingda shouted, "Chaobuki, who do you think you are? You're just a follower of Chaobummy. You'll always be like a dog crawling under his feet. If I die, you won't live for long." Humph! Chaobuki's eyes turned cold. "You only know how to talk back. Back then, your brother was a genius, but he still had his blood extracted. You 2 brothers are the same, with just 3 bloodlines, yet you still want to compete for the main bloodline's opportunity. Who do you think you are?" After that, Chaobuki threw out a cold ice jade bead. As soon as this bead appeared, the surrounding temperature plummeted, and Chow Mingda felt his blood flow stagnate. Extreme cold pearl? Chow Buki sneered. You're quite knowledgeable. As early as 4,700 years ago, when the purple demon divine fire disappeared, Bummy felt that a hidden opponent had appeared in the clan. It's been thousands of years, and it's only recently that they've started suspecting you. Oh, now it seems that it was really you. The extreme cold pearl is a divine object used to suppress the purple demon divine fire. The purple demon divine fire in your body should have been suppressed by now, right? Without the purple demon divine fire, I want to see what other means you have. Chow Mingda struggled for a while and finally sighed slightly. He shouted, Brother Fei, save me, Brother Fei, I know you're here. Chow Buki and the late-stage star transformation cultivators' faces changed drastically at the same time. Of course, they knew who Chow Mingda was talking about. Who else could it be except Han Fei? Recently, Chow Mingda, Wu Bufan, and the others were close to Feng Xingliu and Han Fei because they wanted to cling to these two people. Chow Buki and the others certainly knew Han Fei's strength. He could kill Yi Qianxing and escape calmly after fighting with Zhao Qinglong. With this strength, it was impossible that the big families didn't notice him. However, Chow Buki heard that Chow Mingda was cannon fodder on Han Fei's side, and he gave Han Fei all kinds of things, and Han Fei only helped Chow Mingda after receiving money. Then, Chow Buki didn't think Chow Mingda could afford to make Han Fei an enemy of the Chow family. After all, he didn't think Han Fei was stupid. Why would he help him? Chow Buki said, still trying to stall for time at this time? Han Fei won't do anything without benefit. He destroyed the Fighting Dragon Street just to sell the qualification token. Do you think he's a fool to attack the Chow family for a stranger like you? However, as soon as Chow Buki finished speaking, a voice suddenly sounded. Say it again if you dare. Who are you calling a fool? Chapter 2385. Speaking of which, Chow Buki was stunned. It can't be, right? We've already chased after Chow Buki 8 times, but you didn't show yourself even once. Why did you show yourself this time around? Seeing Han Fei coming from afar with an unfriendly look, Chow Buki, the late-stage star transformation cultivator, and the other person were all dumbfounded. In an instant, the three of them looked as if they were facing a great enemy. This was not Chow Mingda. This was the Han Fei who challenged the Tian clan, broke through the Battle Dragon Street, killed Yi Qianxing, and confronted Zhao Qinglong head-on. In just a few short years, he had become infamous in the Divine Capital Dynasty. As soon as Chow Mingda saw Han Fei, he was about to burst into tears and wailed, Brother Fei, help me! This person has an ultra-quality divine weapon that can suppress all flames. I can't lose it. Chow Mingda knew Han Fei's personality very well, so the first thing he asked for help was to tell Han Fei the grade of the extreme cold pearl. He bet that Han Fei would definitely be interested. Sure enough, Han Fei's heart skipped a beat, and then his soul and blood heated up. F***CK, an ultra-quality divine weapon. Han Fei didn't expect that he would encounter an ultra-quality divine weapon so easily. This thing turned out to be a treasure of the same level as the God Thought Bead. There was no need to think about the effects of the God's Prayer Bead. Even when he was sleeping, he would still be cultivating with it. It was extremely beneficial for his body tempering, soul tempering, poison resistance, and cultivation. Although the function of this extreme cold pearl seemed to be relatively simple, it was indeed an ultra-quality divine weapon. This was the second ultra-quality divine weapon that Han Fei had encountered. Chow Buki seemed to realize that something was wrong, but now Chow Mingda was almost under his control. He said to Lord Qiu via voice transmission, Lord Qiu, hurry up and kill Chow Mingda. Don't fight with Han Fei. Lord Qiu was already vigilant when Chow Mingda shouted. Seeing Han Fei, he had already prepared his strongest blow. Even if Chow Mingda's physique was not weak, he could still kill him. Lord Qiu's hand almost penetrated into Chow Mingda's body. But suddenly, he forgot what he was going to do. He was shocked and tried to launch the star bead to burst out his strongest blow, trying to kill Chowmingda at once. However, the next moment, his consciousness suddenly blurred. The Chow family was not on the Tian clan side, so they didn't know much about Han Fei's methods. Although they had also carefully investigated Han Fei, it was not the Chow family head who had personally used all his strength to investigate, but the core disciple of the main bloodline, Chow Bummy, had arranged for someone to investigate. Basically, those who fought with Han Fei were either killed, or they didn't even know why they were defeated. The only ones who could figure out Han Fei's trump card were the people from Tian clan. Therefore, they could only ask the people from the Tian clan. But why would the Celestials tell these families? They couldn't wait for Han Fei to become mortal enemies with the major families of the Divine Capital Dynasty. It would be best if all the major families were tricked by Han Fei. Then, everyone would want to kill Han Fei. Wouldn't that be perfect? Therefore, Chow Bummy didn't find out that Han Fei could steal other people's abilities. Chow Buki's strength was also extraordinary. Although he had not stepped into the late celestial transformation realm, his strength was barely enough to fight against a late celestial transformation realm expert. Furthermore, this person's speed was extremely fast. The moment Master Chiu made his move, he also made his move. He felt that he knew Han Fei's character very well. Greedy for money. Even if he caught him, he might not necessarily kill him. At that time, as long as he promised to give him resources, even if he had to give away the Arctic Pearl. After all, his identity should be more valuable than Chowmingda's. However, Chow Buki underestimated Han Fei too much. At this moment, Chow Buki, who was in a state of superluminal speed, directly lost consciousness and fell to the bottom of the sea with a bang, creating a big pit. Han Fei grinned slightly. He knew that in this demonic source territory, there was already a giant whale in the heaven-opening state, but it didn't get too close. It seemed to be waiting for the battle here to end. In an instant, both Chow Buki and Master Chiu were dead. The remaining Chow family powerhouse's first reaction was naturally to run away. However, what he didn't know was that in the next moment, he was also dead. He directly fell to the bottom of the sea. Chowmingda was directly dumbfounded. Han Fei's figure instantly became majestic. Han Fei didn't even move, but the three powerhouses were dead. God knows what kind of monstrous ability this was. Chowmingda immediately burst into tears. Brother Fei, you're finally here. You don't know how long I've been waiting for you. Brother Fei, I, Chowmingda, will definitely repay you for saving my life. Come on. Han Fei waved his hand slightly and said, Don't be so pretentious. Who are you pretending for? When did you know that I was here? Hearing Han Fei's words, Chowmingda hurriedly said, Brother Fei, the sensing object we gave you before was mutual. So I knew that you were constantly approaching. You had already arrived when I was being hunted for the 5th time. Han Fei nodded slightly. No wonder I felt that Wu Bufan, Luo Dafei, Li Chen, and Zhou Run were all approaching me these days. It's really because of this sensing object. Since you knew that I was here that day, why didn't you ask for help at that time? Chowmingda chuckled and returned to his previous shameless look. Brother Fei must be testing me. We all know that Brother Fei knows that we have hidden our strength. Brother Fei, you just want to see our real strength, so I can only wait until I can't beat them before I ask for help from you, Brother Fei. Han Fei grinned slightly. You're actually worried that I won't help you after knowing that you have hidden your strength, right? Because if I help you, it means that I will offend many people in a big clan. I've been thinking about this problem for several days. To be honest, I'm still thinking about it now. Chowmingda's heart suddenly tightened, but he said with a straight face, Brother Fei, in fact, we all know that we're sorry. But we have no choice. With our current status in the family, it's very difficult for us to get enough resources. Otherwise, we definitely won't be stingy with your reward, Brother Fei. In fact, these days, I don't know what to do, But Brother Fei, all we need is an opportunity. We will definitely remember this favor. In the future, if we rise, as long as Brother Fei has any request, we will definitely do our best to help you." At this time, Chaomingda's expression also became slightly serious. No one wanted to die. Everyone wanted to become a strong expert, and the rich kids were no exception. Besides, they were just forced to become rich kids. Han Fei chuckled. "Even if I want half of the Chao family, can you give it to me?" Chaomingda nodded slightly. "We don't have any feelings for the family. What the family brings us is only endless despair. Besides, being in the family, we know that if we don't become a peerless heavenly talent, we have no right to speak. Even if we are a peerless heavenly talent, Brother Fei, you've heard that my brother used to compete with the main family. As a result, his blood was pulled out and he died without a burial place. So, as long as there is a chance, I hope that the Chao family will be defeated." Han Fei couldn't help but smile. "Without the Chao family to rely on, what can you give me? I think even if you can enter the arena this time and show your extraordinary talent, you are still not strong enough. There will still be strong experts in the family to pressure you, and you may still not escape your fate." Chaomingda nodded. "So, since many years ago we have been accumulating resources. As for developing connections, we have never used these people, not even once. We are waiting for them to grow. We are waiting for an opportunity. This 100,000-year competition will eventually accompany the East Ocean Divine Land to select talent. We have all decided to go to the City of Terror, which is a paradise of freedom. As long as we don't die, as long as we have a chance to continue to grow, we will eventually return to the Divine Capital Dynasty and make these people pay the price." Han Fei couldn't help but be curious. "So many of you have hidden your strength for so many years. I don't think all of you are so smart. So, among you there should be a leader, right? It was this person who made the plan and carefully let you disguise yourselves to this day." Chaomingda gritted his teeth and nodded slightly. "Since Brother Fei asked, I won't hide it from you," Han Fei interrupted. "Are you sure you won't hide it from me?" Chaomingda said, "He told you before this round of qualifiers. He said that you must have been suspicious and kept testing us in the third round. He said that in the fourth round we could show our strength. If you didn't take action, then we would admit defeat. Let's see if we could survive. If you took action, you don't have to hide it from us." Han Fei couldn't help but be interested. That person was really brave and resourceful. He actually told him everything. Han Fei glanced at the names of those people and couldn't help but say, "Tell me, is it the one smoking the big pipe or the walnut plate guy?" Chaomingda couldn't help but grin. "Actually, it's Zhou Run." "Huh!" Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. "Zhou Run? The one who played Tickles?" He thought that this person might be Wu Bufan or Li Chen. He thought that Luo Dafei didn't look like him. As for Zhou Run, Han Fei subconsciously ignored this person because he didn't jump and had almost no sense of existence. Han Fei couldn't help but admire this person in his heart. This person made it so that others couldn't remember him at all, but he also drifted to the edge of the group. In the group, he seemed to have no status, but outside the group, he seemed to be in the group. Who would have thought that such a marginal person turned out to be the smartest one? Chapter 2386. Although it was indeed a bit beyond Han Fei's expectations, it didn't matter. Anyway, he knew that Chaomingda and the others were not simple. In fact, when Han Fei broke into the Fighting Dragon Street, he knew that there were crouching tigers and hidden dragons in that damn place. Not to mention that each family could easily send 2 heaven-opening state powerhouses after the star transformation. Although Han Fei didn't look at those shop owners carefully, he also knew that most of those shop owners were not simple. Now, when Chaomingda showed his cards, Han Fei couldn't help but ask curiously, "One last question. If I save you but offend your big families, it will be a big loss for me. What else can I get from you except for offering me a big reward?" although Han Fei didn't care whether he offended the big families of the divine capital dynasty or not. However, this didn't mean that Han Fei was willing to be taken advantage of. Xiaomingde said, "Zhou Run said that we really can't offer enough resources to impress you, Brother Fei. However, we know a secret of the demon realm." Xiaomingde was about to speak but was interrupted by Han Fei. "Wait a minute, what you want to say is that the world origin of the demon realm has not been polluted." Wow. Xiaomingde's eyes widened and he looked at Han Fei in shock. Han Fei didn't have any connections in the divine capital dynasty, did he? How did he know about the demon realm? Regarding the demon domain, even they had expended a great deal of effort to obtain the information. Xiaomingde asked weakly, "Brother Fei, where did you buy the information?" When Xiaomingde said this, Han Fei's heart sank and he said, "I didn't buy the information. I guessed it. But since even you can get this information, I'm afraid that you already know what you should know." Xiaomingde was confused. When Han Fei mentioned the world origin, the capital they prepared to trade with Han Fei was gone. Xiaomingde shuddered. "We can find the entrance to the world origin." Han Fei sneered, flipped his hand, and threw out the fishing hook, hooking out the nautical multiverse. He said, "I can point out the entrance right now." Xiaomingde. Seeing that Xiaomingde was confused, Han Fei said disdainfully, "If you can get this intelligence, other people can too. In that case, your so-called entrance is meaningless. It might even be a trap set by someone else." Xiaomingde suddenly raised his head. It did not seem impossible. Zhou Run had also said that this information needed to be carefully considered. When they had a showdown with Han Fei, they shouldn't mention anything about the entrance. Just now, he had only blurted it out in a moment of panic. Han Fei saw that Xiaomingde was also confused. Obviously, he didn't know what was going on either. He thought to himself, although this fellow is only pretending to be a silk pants, after all these years, he has been infected with some habits and his thinking has degenerated. Xiaomingde didn't know what to say, but Han Fei said, "Fine, it doesn't matter. Anyway, according to my estimation, in another 2 months at most, the few of you should be due." Wu Bufan was the closest to us, and Zhou Run wasn't far behind him. He would probably meet up with us in half a month. If we take the initiative to go there, it won't even take half a month. Since Zhou Run was the leader of Xiaomingde's group, Han Fei would like to hear what kind of answer this man, who had molded his appearance, power and playboy status into a mediocre character, had to offer. Han Fei didn't doubt the potential of Xiaomingde's group, but he needed a clear promise or a reward from them. He wasn't free labor. He never did things that were free. Xiaomingde's eyes lit up when he heard that. "Brother Fei, you're so righteous. Then shall we go there now? The 3 of them?" Han Fei grinned. "Mengde. I, Han Fei, have always abhorred evil, but I also need a reason to kill. Tell me, what's his name again?" "Chao Buki." "Oh right. What heinous things has this Chao Buki done? If he's a good person, I can't kill him. I won't feel at ease." "Good?" Xiaomingde almost burst into laughter. "Brother Fei, this guy deserves to die. You heard it just now. 4,800 years ago, I was still a teenager. My younger brother was only a teenager when he was born. At that time, my younger brother was extremely talented. He awakened his divine pulse and became a law enforcer at 7, an explorer at 9, a venerable at 14, and a peak stage venerable at 18. At that time, my younger brother was the best in the Chao family. Everyone thought that my younger brother could expand the sea in 100 years and open the sky in 1,000 years. He was a venerable. However, one day, the war in the heavenly sinkhole became urgent. The main branch of our 3 branches was chosen to support the heavenly sinkhole, but Xiaomingde's eyes turned red as he said this. He scolded, but Chao Bummy, a descendant of the main branch, instigated his uncle to plot against my younger brother's divine pulse. They actually did what was done. They stripped my younger brother's divine pulse alive. Then it was discovered that they had already stolen my younger brother's divine pulse and added it to their bodies. Fortunately, the ancestral patriarchs of our 3 branches returned and didn't go to the heavenly sinkhole. However, what was done was done. The divine pulse was a divine pulse no matter who had it. My younger brother was already useless. Even the ancestral patriarchs of our 3 branches couldn't do anything about it. Hearing this, Han Fei's eyes turned cold. He hated stealing other people's spirit pulses. Wasn't it because of this that Shiman Linglan ended up in the great desolate village and met him? Chaomingda's voice trembled. Back then, my aptitude was average. I could barely be considered a heavenly talent. However, my younger brother knew that he couldn't survive, so he asked the ancestral patriarch to transfer his divine blood to me. That's how I became who I am today. I can't live under the same sky as him, so I pretended to be a foppish young master and lived a muddle-headed life. Brother Fei, Chaomingda, no matter whether I can or not, I will seek justice from the main branch in this life. Back then, it was this guy who captured my younger brother. Han Fei nodded slightly. It seems that this person is indeed unforgivable and should be killed. You kill this Chao Buki. At that time, Chaomingda's body was trembling and waves of air surged. Han Fei only saw Chaomingda hammering Chao Buki's body for 100 seconds, waking him up. Chao Buki, who was hammered awake, was dumbfounded. Why was he heavily injured? He felt that most of his soul had been shattered. When he saw that Chaomingda was burning many of his bones with the purple demon divine fire, he was immediately horrified. Chaomingda, how dare you kill me? The main branch of the Chao family will never forgive you. There will be no way for you to survive in the divine capital dynasty. Chaomingda grinned hideously. It's none of your business. Back then, you captured my younger brother. Have you ever thought about this day? Ha ha. I want to extract your soul, refine it into the 9 heavens seal, and burn it with the purple demon divine fire every day. When Chaomingda took revenge, Han Fei forcibly erased the connection between the extreme cold pearl and Chao Buki. At this moment it had become ownerless. In Han Fei's eyes information emerged. Name Extreme Cold Pearl Introduction. There was once a cold winter in the chaos space. In the depths of the chaos space, in the land of cold winter, there is an extremely cold place. That place contains the mysteries of extreme coldness in the world. The extreme cold pearl was bred by the cold sky behemoth, and was born naturally after being frozen for millions of years in the extremely cold winter. When wearing this pearl, you can suppress all flames and use the power of extreme coldness in the pearl, which is comparable to a strike from an emperor. Every time you use it, you must go to an extremely cold place to replenish it. Quality, ultra quality divine artifact, soul attachment, none effect, suppress all flames and make an ice strike recastable, unrefined. Note, it can't be easily attached to a soul. It can't be fused with a non-compatible soul. Shoot! Han Fei was horrified to see that this extreme cold pearl could burst out an attack comparable to that of an emperor. How could he get such an ultimate treasure? Wow, an attack from an emperor! This was the only treasure that Han Fei obtained in the heaven-opening state that could burst out the power of an emperor. It was indeed an ultra-quality divine artifact, an ultimate treasure. In Han Fei's eyes, this treasure was even better than the God prayer bead. Han Fei couldn't help but feel lucky that Chao Buki didn't directly use the ice strike of this extreme cold pearl on him. Otherwise, he might not have been able to resist it. Fortunately, he didn't underestimate this person and directly deprived his consciousness. Otherwise, if he seized the opportunity and used this pearl, today's ending would probably be reversed. At this moment, Chaomingda was still in a frenzy. Han Fei smiled and quietly killed the late-stage Star Transformation Cultivator and the late-stage Star Transformation Cultivator. Just then, Han Fei didn't forget the other 2 guys who were burned to bones by Chaomingda with the purple demon divine fire, but he caught them and brought them back. Anyway, as long as they were in his hands, he could find their natal stars. At that time, this late-stage star transformation cultivator would be left to him. The other 3 would be sacrificed to the god of war. He didn't know what the supreme divine skill that the god of war mentioned was. TSK. After a while, this place was in a mess. The heaven-opening state demonic creatures quietly observing this place in the distance didn't act rashly. But Han Fei knew that there were more and more demonic plants nearby. He didn't want to be besieged by 7 or 8 heaven-opening state demonic creatures again. He stopped Chaomengda from destroying Chao Buki's broken body and threw it into the Source Sea. Anyway, Chao Buki's soul had been extracted by Chaomengda. This guy didn't care about a body. He thought that Han Fei might want to use his body as a puppet. He heard that Han Fei had a blood-killing puppet, which was very powerful.